Good morning. Welcome back to Our Neutral Voices Presents a Financial Pillar. I'm Ryan Leprid, man JJ Foster.
Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning. And today we got a special guest for you. We got a local entrepreneur, president, CEO of the Dream Center, owner of Ink Spot newspaper, and as JJ introduced him, the godfather of Fort Wayne, Mr. John Dortch. John, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Good morning.
Yeah. How you feeling today?
I feel great.
Feeling good? Good.
I was going to say that introduction, we got to get this man this dude. That's a Parkview, was out there forever, then wrote books. He's an author, Ink newspaper, really rejuvenated the Black Chamber, owns real estate. He's a mentor. He gets off into small businesses and things. What can I say? And you're right. And I called him not just the Godfather, the Black Godfather. Clarence Avant, yes. Yeah. Vernon Jordan, you talk about brokering deals and always being in the know. This man has been in the know for a long time.
Yeah. John, what's it feel like when you hear somebody talk about you like that?
Well, I'm more kind of low-key type guy, and it's a good feeling, but you can't allow that to get to your head and you think you're more than anybody else, you know. I like to remain low-key.
Low-key? Awesome.
Yeah, that's it. Back in the shadows, always. But he knows about everything. So if you ever need information, you pick up that phone. He gonna know and give you provide some insight. Right? There you go. Yeah. Now he mentioned the Dream Center. Now a lot of people, you kind of new on the scene with the Dream Center, but I want you to explain what the Dream Center is, because one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on this morning, obviously, we're talking about financial literacy, and we're in some tough times now. People have to navigate through this landscape. But talk to us a little bit about the Dream Center and, what you guys do over
there. Thank you. The Dream Center is a building on 1615 East Wallace Street, right behind the old Links. And I've had this idea for some time. The mayor that died, he said that you talked about a Dream Center 3 years ago. Dream Center will be 2 years old, March 25th of this year. Opened it up last year, and I've taken the word dream in the acronym. D is determination, R is respect, E is energy, A is attitude, M is motivation. And under the Dream Center, we have 3 pillars. One is health and wellness. Whether you know it or not, we have the highest infant mortality rate in the country, it looks like, but definitely in Fort Wayne, 15.4%.
So we have the highest infant mortality rate?
15.4%.
Wow.
Way too high. So health and wellness, have a nutritionist who is the manager and the vice president of the Dream Center, Kelly Marvin. She handles that. Then you have the entrepreneurship. A lot of people want to be entrepreneurs, but a lot of entrepreneurs fail within the first 3 to 5 years because of mistakes and those things. I teach that class, which we talk about how to be an entrepreneur, how to be successful as an entrepreneur, and why businesses fail. That's the second pillar under the Dream Center. And the third one is life skills. I bring in speakers 2 a month, been doing that since last year, in which they talk about various subjects in the community. We had Judge Morgan last year, talked about courtroom protocol. We had sex trafficking. We had a speaker in to talk about that. We've had a number of speakers. Probably you can look on the website and you can see the ones that's on twice a month. And also at Johnny May Farm, we do a cooking classes there, started last September, from every other Thursday, and we do it for any adults that want to learn about healthy food and how to prepare cooking better. We also will start in June for middle school kids. They will be learning how to cook, and they could take the food that they have prepared home. That would help us with the infant mortality, because obviously the parents will eat healthy food, which if they're pregnant or have kids at home, this would help. So that's the whole interest of the Dream Center. We also have First Source Bank will be putting a satellite office in the Dream Center. Awesome. That's starting this month. That is to help people that struggling, have low credit scores, but they might be gainfully employed. There are a lot of other things that we want to do. We want to reach out to the community. And one of the things I grew up with, if I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living will not have been in vain.
Yeah.
So that's what my dad taught me.
That's awesome. Yeah. What about any ideas or thoughts around financial literacy courses at the Dream Center? Gearing
Yes.
anything towards that?
Yes, we do. Just brought in an accountant, Sean Norman, and he's doing bookkeeping, taxes, and accounting. And he has a line already of people coming in wanting to see him every day.
Is that kind of under the entrepreneurial part of the Dream Center?
Oh, yeah, yes. It's part of the Dream Center. And we're getting ready to, in May, to start a skilled trades class. Our goal is to graduate 10 people in May, then again in July, and then again in September. That would be 30 people. We would like this to be over a 3-year period. We did something like this in 2017. After a week, then you're eligible for apprenticeship programs where you can get in and you can eventually become an electrician or whatever skill that you might be interested in. As you might know, we're suffering in Fort Wayne for a lot of skilled trades. Yes. And Google most certainly is very interested in what we're going to do there. So we also will have in the curriculum, the accountant will be teaching part of it about, okay, you're going to make this amount of money, but what you going to do with it? You know, First Source Bank will be right there too to tell them, not necessarily, you might not elect to bank with First Source Bank, but they'll be able to tell them good financial information.
Yeah.
So when does that cohort start for the apprenticeship program?
In May.
It's going to be, okay, that's upcoming May, because, I mean, that's good information. And, again, we talk about home ownership and a lot of things, but at the end of the day, people need to be making livable wages. So,
Agree.
You know, so that is definitely a route and a career that folks can have. Speak to me about the entrepreneurship part. You said people fail within the first however many days and whatnot. What are some ideas? What kind of advice would you have for somebody that's sitting out there, they have an idea and they want to get off into their own business?
Well, one of the things that I do offer a mentoring program, and right now I'm meeting the third Monday of every month. I currently have 6 people in now, but a lot of people do not realize that mentoring is not just like coaching, touch, and go. Mentoring is at least for a year. My second book was Built to Lead, a guide to mentorship. There are certain questions in there and certain answers that you have to make in order to do that. That's the same as if you have a business, you know. You do need to have someone to mentor you that's been in businesses. Most businesses fail, as I stated, first 3 to 5 years. And the mistakes that people make, if they start making some money, then they obviously see things they want to spend it on instead of investing or putting the money away. One of the things that we had last year, we had a stockbroker to come in. People do not realize you can make money in stocks. You can lose money too.
Yes,
but
you
I've
can.
been doing that for a long time. But
The making or the losing?
both.
Both.
Yeah, I have to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Both. But I enjoy it. I love it. And I've gone off with the penny stock and done extremely well. You know, 'cause you got to read though. A lot of people don't like to read. So get back to answer the question JJ had, is that in starting a business, you know, and I really enjoyed that. I failed. You know, I had a barbershop once and I kept it for 5 years, but I learned some things, you know, why I got out of the barbershop business. You need to be there, not just on the weekend to collect the money that the guys claim that they didn't make, but you need to be there every day so you can see what's going on.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are things that you learn. But starting a business is not easy. It's tough, but you got to understand the principles of it, you know, and if you have people working for you or just working for yourself, you know. My third book talks about 14 rules to help you survive in the corporate arena, whatever. Very first rule, got to be on time. That's critical. And a lot of people have that problem. Even if you own a business, you got to be on time. You got to know what's going on, and you got to be involved. It's to know what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I've always admired about entrepreneurs, and something very important for them to understand when they get into it is that your first idea may not work. second idea may not work, but having that, I guess, trait in you that you're not afraid to fail is really what makes successful entrepreneurs successful, right? They don't give up after the first chance. They don't give up when things are down, right?
That is correct. I spoke to First Friday last month, the group that meets, and one of the things I talked about.
That's one of the reasons your name sounds familiar to me too. I go to those usually. I couldn't make it last month, but now that you mentioned, I remember seeing the advertisement for that.
Yeah, I talked about the Jack in the Box. How you're gonna get, you get knocked down, but you got to be able to bounce back up. Exactly what you talked about. I also talked about fear. Do not allow fear to control your way of thinking and your way of doing things. You got to put that aside. Sure, we all fear of certain things that we're not going to do, but you got to be able to get out there and go after it.
Absolutely.
And now you worked in corporate America for a number of years, and then now, as you said, an entrepreneur working for yourself. Break down the differences. Because there's a lot of people that don't understand. If I work for somebody, I have these set of expectations. When I work for myself, there's a whole different set of expectations. Can you talk about the pros and cons of working for somebody and then working for yourself?
Sure. My first job right out of college in Nashville, Tennessee was the Internal Revenue, 2 years. That was long enough.
And corporate America for you? No.
Yeah. Well, the restrictions and all the other things there. So I left and I ended up in Fort Wayne, Indiana with International Harvester. Spent 3.5 years with them. And I was a manager. I did travel with some of the other things they had me to do. But the corporate America, to answer that question, you got to go through. You might be reporting to someone, then they got to report to someone else, and then report to someone else. That's too many channels you have to go through. Then I ended up going to, after 3 years with the International Harvester, I went to Parkview Hospital, and I started as assistant director of HR. And when I left after 30 years, and I had been a vice president for the last 15 years at Parkview. But I learned a lot. In each promotion, I learned something, how to deal with it at another level. I did end up once, I got kind of reprimanded for something I did. We had moved off campus, and it's like 15 people that reported to me, and we needed a refrigerator because to walk back to the main building. So I found where the hospital would get their refrigerators from, and I just called Stuckey Brothers and had them to bring a refrigerator without going through accounting, without filling out a purchase order and not. Well, I got reported to the president, and the president did say sometimes you learn it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So I learned that.
Fully aware of that, that old saying.
I just thought I could go do it, and because I was concerned about my staff. They wanted something to eat and not. Sure. So there are different rules, different challenges. And if you can do well, I went through all the promotions and not. But I just had the urge that I wanted to get out and do something on my own. My very first job was a consulting company that I have. And it's the Preston Group. My middle name is...
How old were you at that time when you made that transition?
Oh, I don't know, my late 50s, I believe, somewhere in that.
Was that a scary time for you? Going from a steady job, steady paycheck, to now all of a sudden at 50 years old, you're going out on your own, not knowing what that was going to look like?
Well, a lot of people thought that I got fired, because I was a vice president making good money and all of that. People say you just don't walk away from that. You're looking at the title and the money. Well, that's not. Self-satisfaction is a big, big thing about that, And I wasn't totally satisfied. And my first job was a contract in Bluffton, Indiana. But I ended up in Toronto, Canada for 12 years, twice a week. They had a corporate plane, that would seat 9, and we could be in Toronto in 55 minutes. I was doing a job on leadership development. Now, I wasn't going every week, but at least once a month. I learned a lot about the Canadian operations and how that was. So I did that for 12 years, So it was a great experience. I learned a lot. One of the things about any job, your intention is obviously to learn as much as you possibly can, because I'm always thinking about, I have a vision. I want to do something else. So that's it.
Yeah. You hit on something there. Like you said, you was at the top of Parkview. You right there making good money, but you felt there was more out there. And that's what a lot of people miss, especially in today's society. People are chasing the dollar. A lot of kids, they think they want to do this because they want to make X amount of money. But money does not buy happiness. We know that's saying.
That's true.
And to your point, you had that self-fulfillment that you wanted to get out there and do. So, I guess that is a lesson in itself. Talk about, your multiple streams of income, because if anything, I mean, you haven't said that, but we looked at everything, in his introduction of you and everything that we talked about. You got a newspaper, the Dream Center, real estate. So somewhere somebody taught you about having multiple streams of income.
Well, my first book was talked about my dad, In my father had a 6th grade education. Mom had an 8th grade education. I have 7 sisters, 3 brothers. We're all college graduates. But Dad talked about get a skill or get an education. Doesn't matter. You might decide to be a plumber. You're going to do well, electrician. Get a skill, get an education, because it's all up in your head, So I learned a lot. And I was the youngest boy, 4 sisters younger. I spent a lot of time with my dad talking about, what's out there, whatever. But he worked at a sawmill, a paper mill in Alabama. But he bought 10 acres at a time. He got 80 acres of farm and then built a house. I can't drive a nail straight, but my dad could do all
Build
of that.
it by hand himself?
Yes, with some other
help,
friends
yeah.
to help, yes. And we still have it. We have all of that. But so to answer that question, I learned a lot from my dad and my drive, and all the rest of us, all my other 10 brothers and sisters, most of them are self-employed, entrepreneurs and all of that. And I'm very, very happy, very pleased about it. That's why I felt I had to write the first book, because it's the title, In My Father's House, These Were the Rules, In the very first chapter, your word is your bond. If he drilled that in my head, if somebody tells you something or I tell you something, that's what that means. I'm going to do it no matter what, because that's my word, It doesn't have to be in writing or anything of that nature,
So it sounds like you grew up with a strong family foundation.
Yes,
right?
I did. Yes, I did. And I carry that on in what I do, my everyday life, or if I'm working for myself, or if other people. I do a lot, as I said, in mentoring. And this afternoon, I would be at the library. I have done my 3rd year doing a program there on culture and conflict management, because that does happen, So I've done it 2 years in a row. This will be my 3rd year.
What's that going to look like? That conversation, that seminar you're going to be at? Like, what's that communication going to be like?
The communication going to be like, one of the things that people don't think about is the different generations that we have in the workforce. You realize, I believe there's 5 different generations. Obviously, there could be some different thoughts, the way to do things and all of that, causes conflict. With 11 in my family, we had conflict, And then culture, it's a lot with DEI, diversity, education, and inclusion, difference in all of that, same as different in generation. But they having me back for a 3rd time, so I guess I'm doing something right, And they bring in, it's strictly for the supervisors, because they bring in new supervisors and they continue to grow. But it's not just the library I've done that. I've done it many times for other companies too. I enjoy it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you're talking with supervisors of the library.
That's
to
correct.
Manage conflict within the business.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Gotcha.
the culture.
Yeah.
So as far as what kind of advice would you have? Like, you mentioned stocks, you mentioned the trades. What do you think? What's out there that a young person that's looking to generate some revenue, or anybody looking to generate some revenue, what kind of suggestions would you have? I mean, you mentioned 2 good ones, but I mean, anything that you have that you see as you're navigating these streets?
Yes. One of the things my dad taught me is that how many times can you turn that dollar over? Can that dollar make money for you? That's kind of like the stock type thing. But another one is land. I ride around a lot of times looking for empty lots or land or whatever, and I'll turn around and buy something at one price, and then just hold on to it because the price of land going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
That's another way to do that. When I first came to Fort Wayne, there used to be a bank, the Anthony Wayne Bank. You can go and borrow money and didn't have to pay anything back and put the money back in 6 months. Well, I borrow that money and go.
Interest-free loans for 6 months?
Yeah. Then I would go back and use that money I had borrowed and see how much money I can make on it to turn back in what I borrowed. There are a number of different ways in that you can do. So many ways that you can make money, but you got to read and think of it, But I said purchase land, place stocks, buy homes. I had 5 different duplexes at one time, and then you have people in there to rent them, and, you sell them after you fix them up, or you do whatever, or you can get the rent from that. The building on South Calhoun bought it at an auction, and that was 12 years ago. Now there are 10 people in there. 8 of the 10 are females. They're all entrepreneurs, and the work that we've had to do to it here and there, but it has paid for itself many, many times. And what it paid for it at the auction is about 8 or 10 times more today than it was at the time we bought it.
Do you find it challenging when you're mentoring these new entrepreneurs on changing their mindset around when you get into business for yourself? It's no longer about earning money for yourself right now. It's about earning money for the business, putting money back into the business to grow the business. Because everybody's starting a business because they want to make money for themselves, right? Live a better life. But there's a time period there where if you want your business to grow and become successful, you got to keep reinvesting back into your business. Do you find that challenging with new entrepreneurs?
It very challenging because it's tough and hard for many people to understand how they can take that money, either set it aside, reinvest it, and don't touch it, With TVs, you see a fancy car, you see this, you see that. Some people think, I just got to have that car or whatever. I drive a Subaru. And some people said, well, why you drive a Subaru? I said, I choose to drive a Subaru. You know what I'm saying? Great car and not very expensive, and all of that. So those are the things you have to look at. I always carry a notepad. I'm always doing notes on something. So when you thinking, you write down, what's the Corvette going to cost? What's the Subaru going to cost? How you think you're going to look in it and all of that. You're trying to impress somebody. You're trying to impress yourself. Or you're going to take that money that's where you didn't spend on that and invest it or save it, Those are the things so when you're talking to somebody, especially young people, they have a hard time understanding that. Wow, you mean to tell me that,
This isn't your money. This is your business's money, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
the more
right.
you invest it back into your business.
You invest it back into the business.
Quicker it's going to grow, bigger it's going to be.
Well, it's going to grow, but you might have plumbing problems, you have roof problems, you have all of these, and how are you going to pay for that, if you haven't saved money?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Just a little background on myself. I took a brief jump into entrepreneurship. I was with a bank here in town for about 11 years, and I left there to go pursue a State Farm insurance agency opportunity, right, where I would own and operate that. During that process, realized it was not for me, and now I'm back in corporate world of banking there. But just something you just said there was the day after I was set for my agency to open, the office space I would have been in flooded. Would have ruined everything that was in there. So for me, kind of blessing, right? I made a right decision on that. For many of other reasons too, but just you don't think about things like that. You go into business and all of a sudden, a flood happens, it ruins everything. Where are you going to come up with money to do with that, right? Plan for the unexpected.
Well, that is so true. But see, I read 3 or 4 papers a day. That's number one, and I'm always looking for the money section or something because a lot of times that's a question, and it gives me an answer that I hadn't even thought of. And I jot it down, and that becomes like my Bible, which I look back at it and I refer to it, And how can I, again, as I said earlier, take that dollar and turn it over? How many times can I turn it over?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I think doing things the way you do it, when you have multiple streams of income, it takes some of that pressure off.
It does.
Because, and I always say too, even if, say, you work for somebody, you have a job where you might be in corporate over here, but you got your stocks, you got your real estate, you got stuff going on, you always are in control. That puts you, even over here in this job in corporate, it puts you in control because hey, if something happened, I've got this to fall back on. So it's almost like even with investments, the first thing they talk about is diversifying, because if something happens over here, you're still covered on this side. So, that's why you can move and walk around the way you do and be positive, because all your eggs aren't in one basket, basically.
That is true. How true that is. When both of our daughters graduated from college, I gave them a poem and a spreadsheet, and the cost to them was zero. But the spreadsheet was to show them what I had done over those years and how I paid for their education.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important, that's critical, and all of that. Now, will they follow my advice or what I did? Not necessarily, but they picked up some good points from that.
Yeah. Can you speak to how you mentor your entrepreneurs with delegating responsibility? Right? Because a lot of entrepreneurs, they get into it because they have a specialty, they know the business better than everybody else. But then when they have to start dealing with the back office, payroll, things like that, that becomes most of their time rather than focusing on what their specific talent was at, right? Which is why they started the business. Where a lot of entrepreneurs don't know, it might come at a cost to delegate this, hire that one employee, but what is that going to save you in the long run? Can you kind of speak to that?
Yes, that is and can become a problem because one, people talk too much and too long. I know I'm dealing with some like that now. When they want to talk about their entrepreneurs, my question to them, what is the bottom line and what are the results? What's the bottom line? I don't want to hear what you say on and on and on. What's the bottom line and what's the results? What's the outcome that you want from this? And you have to have them to understand that. You got to also understand, if you don't understand or research it, to get the answer. You've just hired someone. You should have the job description, accountabilities, and all of that. What I do every day is that, and usually for the week, I have a note chart that I've written down what I have going on this particular week and the time that I've allotted for that. Time can get away from you. And the thing that is, wow, I don't know what I did today or what happened at the time. So you got to have some allocation for time. Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheel. So having someone to work for you, that's what you have to have. Now, one of the things you have to realize, constantly you're going to have to go back and keep referring to it, especially when you have somebody to work for you. Usually, people will end up getting it in the long run. I get notes and texts and all from people saying, wow, you really helped me on such and such. They might have left the state or whatever, in something small that I never thought about it, that I did or said. So having someone to work for you, you got to have a plan and follow that plan and then get them to see. It's not something that you just trying to do, have them to do, but in order for you to be successful and for you to grow, because that's what most people do.
Would you agree that one of the problems with a lot of new entrepreneurs is they try to take on too much, right?
I agree strongly.
Yeah.
Yes. They try to take on too much, some too soon. It's just like becoming an adult, You don't become a teenager overnight or something like that. You got to go through the steps, because each step you're learning something. What to do, how to do it, what not to do. You're going to make mistakes. A lot of people get concerned that they're going to make mistakes. You grow from mistakes. You're gonna make mistakes. Mistakes can be your best teacher. So they need to understand that.
Yeah. And ask those questions because from the banking world, my experience, dealing with a lot of entrepreneurs, small business owners that are just starting up, they're always trying to cut costs, right? Because money is a legit concern at that point in time. And
that's true.
Let's use a bakery for an example. You got into doing this because your talent is baking the cakes, making the stuff. But there's only so much time in a day, right? You can't get more time. There's only so much time a day. So if you're spending your time handling your payroll for your people, writing checks, doing bookwork, stuff like that. That's less time that you're out on the floor doing what your specialty is that got you to where you're at.
You're so right.
A few $100s, and you could hire a payroll service company to come and handle all that stuff for you, right?
That is
You're trying to cut costs here, but you're cutting that cost at what loss, right?
That's
Would you
true.
agree to that?
A few $100 you can hire payroll, and they would do it timely, accurately, and all of that. You know, that's important.
Yeah, and what you're losing in quality, you're losing in time, losing in whatever of the production of what you're doing would more than make up for what you're paying.
That is true.
But that's a change in mindset. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's a change of mindset.
JJ, anything else to add here?
Just gonna say, hey, it's been a pleasure having you on, Mr. Dortch. The only thing I'm gonna say at the Dream Center, we got to get Lake City Bank up in there doing something, man. I mean, that's my only thing out this whole interview. You know, we got to get them in there. We do financial literacy. We got some programs.
Yes, just because First Source is up in there does not mean, you know, I have a lot of respect for a lot of the other banks, you know, and would love to, you know, one of the big things that's happening now is fraud, which is a biggie. We haven't done anything on that. Very open to having other banks to come in to do a program on, you know, there's some things I might not even know and they can introduce to me. And I said, wow, I think that's a good idea.
There's
And
also
then-
things that we, as the financial pillar, you know, would be happy to look at doing with you as well. Financial literacy, speaking on fraud, things like that from our expertise within the banks as well.
Correct.
I think that's important.
And that actually was a topic, you know. But if you, hey, I can see you putting on the big screen over there. You can run our podcast. We got several different topics that touch on those things. So
That's one of the things JJ and I, part of the financial pillar, talked about that we really want to focus on this year is how do we start from the beginning and kind of reach the youth, you know, that high school age, coming out of high school age, and get them to understand financial literacy and credit and the importance of that and where that leads to and what it can affect early. So we're not trying to talk to people that are further down the road that we're trying to fix credit problems, right? That's important. We still have that, but how can we connect with people and get them to understand so they don't find themselves in those situations, right?
I agree because, you know, some of these kids end up getting scholarships, going to school and doing that. Some now are working, and what are they going to do with the money and how to invest it? Or
No idea how to manage that money or
No,
even
have no
spend it
idea.
responsibly. Right?
have no idea. Agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
I like that idea.
before we get out of here today, anything you want to leave our audience with? Anything that we didn't talk about? Anything you want to let them know? Any programs you got going on?
You guys did a great job early in the morning. No,
water?
I think if I would say one thing, I don't think we talk about this enough. Financial planning or something that somebody that's doing something, how did they get to where they are and why are they doing what they do? You know, these kind of programs are very, very good and very healthy for the community.
Very good. So,
and I just like to say, remember, financial literacy is the new civil right.
till next time, I'm Ryan Leprid, JJ Foster, Black Godfather of Fort Wayne, John Dortch. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
We are Our Neutral Voices. Peace.
Thank you.